Hello and welcome to this week's look at action and stunts on film and television. Hope you're well, hope you're wrapping up warm. You will need to be wrapped up warm for this week's edition because we are in the north. We're in America and it's particularly cold in this particular part of the year. Back in 1975, which is when the film was made. And it's a Charles Bronson picture. We've visited Charlie on a couple of occasions through the Death Wish pictures and The Mechanic, of course, back in the day. But this one is quite a poignant one because it's the last picture worked on by Yakima Canutt, who, of course, the man who practically invented stunts as we know them in the world. He was second unit director on this and brought in a team of very exciting professionals to do the stunt work. There's a couple of bits and pieces which I've had a look at and I've isolated for the purpose of this. We'll go through them a bit more afterwards because I want to take a little look at some of this stuff. But this is Breakheart Pass from 1975. Let's take a look and we'll regroup afterwards. Here we go. Right. Breakheart Pass. Let's have a look at this. We'll start with the boxcar fight. There's Charlie jumping up onto the roof. And he will shortly be joined from the other end by actor Archie Moore. There he is. Now, what's going to happen up here is a fight that is worked out and coordinated with second unit director Yakima Canutt. Lots of snow on the roof, a flat camera position, but that is a real train moving, and they are start the fight by throwing a snowball. Howard Curtis and Tony Brubaker, the two doubles. Howard doubling for Charlie. Take a look at the bars. There's bars either side of the edge of that carriage. You see right there? They've been specially fitted for the purpose of this. They weren't on there. They've been added to the carriage, allowing for certain safety measures to take place. One of which will be when they go over the side of the carriage. So this fight's all worked out. Over here, there is the safety rig. That's a safety line which is holding Howard in place. Tony has one as well. He's now going to get dragged over in a second, but we can't see it from this side. He's going to try and gouge an eye out. Some great acting by Howard there, love him. Over goes Tony, and he will have a similar wire rig that side. So they're holding on that bar at the top, but they are wired to this carriage, so they can't just drop away. And the editing here is fantastic. It goes back from the doubles to the actors there, to the doubles here. So he goes up in the air, then the cut, and then there is Howard right in the solar plexus of Tony. Down he goes. Again, all worked out. On top of the carriage, stationary, diving over to try and get hold of him. Desperately swinging and moving around. They're tussling here. And it gets towards the end of the fight. Now, what's happening here is that down below is a net. He falls. There's the movement on the camera because it's attached to a rig and the net is good enough to hold him. Dummy replaces for the rest of the fall. But yes, it was a net that held on there. And Charlie gets back up on top. There's a fire gag in this as well. This guy is having a little conversation with this soldier here. Bit of back projection. This is studio work. So you get a studio shot and then a location shot. Distracts him. There, catches him there. That's the studio shot of the actor, partial burn. And then this is Joe Canutt leaving the train at speed. landing in the snow and putting himself out as he goes down. So it's done in two ways. Joe crops up again in a bit. Let's take a look at some horse falls and some falls themselves. Here's an explosion. Watch the guy on the roof on the left. He's falling now, jumps, throws the weapon away, and as he's falling back, it cuts. Watch him drop out of shot, and boing, there he is, pops back up again. Now, this other one here, the explosion goes off, and he's got a wire attached to the back of him. Horse spooks, and then look at him disappear out of the saddle. Straight backwards onto the ground. Really good stuff. This is Joe Canutt once again. He's about to get absolutely poleaxed by this bloke who swings what looks like a rifle at him. Bang, it snaps in two. He's wearing a somersault harness. There's a cable attached to the back of that which allows him to flip right over the top and is clear of the horse as he hits the ground. It's got to be timed well. You can't afford to mess about with it. There's another one coming up here which is very good to look at as well. Mickey Gilbert in the uniform jumping clear. Now, I don't know whether, because a lot of the indigenous cast were very good riders, so I suspect he's come out of the saddle. He's being dragged. Look at the horse jumping up and nearly catches him on the way down. Very nearly catches him on the way down. Right, so quite a bit to cover there. I want to look at the train sequence in particular. So Yak had decided that he wanted, from a safety perspective, to have the rails running along the side of the carriage. Makes perfect sense. Then used that in the fight itself. They're struggling together. They're using the barriers there to hang on and flip themselves over onto the side of the train. They are wired. They've both got wires on, so should they lose grip for whatever reason, they'll dangle. They won't go any further. But then the interesting aspect is, of course, Archie Moore's character, Tony Brubaker, the stuntman, is thrown from the train, from the moving train, and lands in a net. This net is attached to the side of the train, allowing him to fall clear of the shot, but also land safely in the net. Now, Yak had worked all these details out and said it's perfectly fine, it's absolutely safe, it's strong enough, which it was. But then you see the clip in the picture there, and when he hits that and the whole camera picture moves from side to side violently, is because the camera position is attached to one of those upright poles holding that net in place. Now, we're familiar with looking at people jumping from trains. As you know, we'll use Octopussy as a great example. You've got Paul Weston and Wayne Michaels jumping from the train at speed and landing in an airbag or a box rig on the side of the rail tracks. There, they've gone along at the right speed. They've thrown sandbags and gone, yep, that's where we need to position our rig. Now here, this is on the train. This train is moving. And, of course, Tony Brubaker can't afford to jump out too far. He'll miss the net. He can't afford to drop down. It's got to look as though he's being thrown from it. So there has to be a bit of lift in order for him to do it. But then to land in that net and stay perfectly stationary, then go, yep, we're done, okay, and you can climb yourself back up or climb back into the train, however they did it. But it's a very, very interesting scenario that was 1975 and Octopussy was 83. There's been a great deal of change in that period of time in order to maintain safety. And safety is the major factor here. They are looking at creating a landing area that can be attached to the side of that train, so as it's moving, the guy jumps off the top and he's going to be safe. That's all been worked out beforehand. His weight has been taken into consideration. Yes, this is good up to this type of weight. And as he hits it, as I say, there's this enormous movement swinging about, which I hadn't really noticed until having another look at it for this. So it's quite an interesting scenario to have. There's some horse stuff in there as well. Again, the fall from the top of the train, was that into a rig or was that into a net as well? There's a great deal of bounce. You see his legs come back up as he's hit it. So it could have been there could have been some sort of netting situation put in place. If it works for one, it may work for the other. It might have been cheaper to have that than it would be to have boxes. Replacing boxes, of course, you need to replace the bad ones, replace them with good ones, reset the whole landing pad, and it's just out of shot. He's got to fall into this little crater, and you want to make sure that can't be seen. So a lot of very interesting stuff going on there. Some great doubling. Tony Brubaker up there on the roof, and Howard Curtis, who is doubling for Charles Bronson. It's a nice little thing. There's lots of bits and pieces going on. It's a great score by Jerry Goldsmith as well. If you're a particular favourite of his, this is one of his good ones. There aren't any bad ones as far as I'm concerned with Jerry Goldsmith, and if you're a fan of film music, you will know. But I'm particularly keen on that as well. Yak didn't get on terribly well with the director. That's made very clear in his book, which if you haven't already read it, it's called Stuntman, and is a fine read if you get a chance to get a hold of that. But all of his feelings towards the director are very well documented right there. So that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed that. Don't forget that we are, on the subject of books, we are reading Bob Simmons' Nobody Does It Better. We are 5 chapters in. Chapter 6 comes along on Monday. If you're a Bond fan, it's a great time at the moment because we've done Goldfinger and Chapter 6 is Thunderball. So that is coming out on Monday. Check out the Pod Dojo network. They're responsible for the podcast. And, join me next week for more of the same. Until then, it's bye for now.